Hello, welcome to iFanboy Mediasplode, episode 58, ranking the 21st century films with Steven Spielberg. My name is Conor Kilpatrick, and I'm here with Josh Flanagan.
Hi there.
And Ron Richards.
Hey, friends. How are you?
And we're back with our monthly Mediasplode show that was unlocked by the patrons at patreon.com/iFanboy. Thanks to all the patrons who are one. If you're not one, please consider being one. They create great shows for everyone to enjoy by becoming patrons. This is our non-comics media show. Normally we talk about comic book media in our other podcast, but this is our monthly chance. And this is the only time we get to talk about non-comic stuff every month. I'm not allowed to talk about it.
It's the only time. We set aside an hour. Connor is in a box.
Ron's like, did you see that thing? I'm like, I don't want to talk to you.
You can't talk about it. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. Sorry. Yeah.
So we like to start the show every month with our regular segment, what we've been enjoying since we last spoke with each other and you. And I'll kick it off with and as we record this, the final episode of the studio aired this past week.
No, I have not watched the last episode, the second part of the finale, so do not spoil it.
I won't spoil it. I'll just say, I'm just going to mention quickly that this is my favorite new comedy in a while. I thought every episode was offered something really interesting. If it wasn't really funny, it was at least really interesting because they did different things with every episode.
Yep.
Two-part finale was really funny. I won't spoil it, but I feel like Bryan Cranston needs an Emmy for his silent comedic work in the final episode. It's a madcap look at a fantasy Hollywood studio that does not exist in the world anymore. And
where do you think this ranks in the world of insider Hollywood satire commentary of like
pretty high,
the player and like all that sort of stuff? Like,
it's almost
the poster is certainly channeling the player.
It's definitely a companion piece of the player, and in fact, one of the characters is named after a character in the player.
It seems like a direct descendant of the player, right?
If it's not a bookend to like the player kicked off the '90s, this is the end of everything.
Yeah,
as the whole system falls apart. I think it's definitely a philosophical bookend to the player.
I still think the Golden Globes episode might have been. I mean, I don't think I've laughed throughout that entire thing. It ratchets up the insanity.
Almost every show is like that, right? Every episode where they start somewhere, but then by the end of it, you're just like, you can't believe the tension, the comedic tension. But anyway, I thought this was a great season. They just got renewed for a second season, so I'm looking forward to more. Yeah. Although if they haven't, it was a really nice sort of. It was episodic, but also there was a through line.
But it wasn't a heavy-handed through line.
No, it was a light through line.
There was enough one and dones where you didn't feel like the overbearingness of an overall plot line. Like they dropped it in the first episode, and you didn't hear about it till the end of the season, right? Like so.
And that's how it all comes together at the end. Yeah. All the things you thought were just one-offs. It's basically their slate, and the finale is about their slate. So. Right. If they hadn't got renewed, it would have tied up in a nice bow and it would be really satisfying. I
don't think it was perfect. I think the Seth Rogen didn't need to fall as much. Like there was way more physical comedy than I think it needed.
Then you might not like the final episode.
Oh well, we'll see. But there was a run of like 3 or 4 episodes where I'm like, he falls in every episode and like gets injured and like.
I wonder if that's a joke like about somebody that just they know.
Maybe, who knows?
Like maybe there's some studio exec or somebody and he's famous for falling.
Yeah, but all the support. I mean, Ike Barinholtz and Catherine Hahn, like they're so good. Everyone's so funny.
Catherine O'Hara, everyone, and then
who was honestly barely in it. Like she gets billing in every episode, but she was only in like less than half the episodes.
Yeah, and tons of people playing themselves.
Yeah.
Tons of directors acting, tons
cameos.
Really,
I did have to laugh. I saw the Hollywood Reporter was like, how did the studio get all these A-list actors like Dave Franco? And I was like, really? Dave Franco? Okay.
Also, they're all friends.
Yeah. He ran to his phone.
Yeah, no,
he's very.
He was funny. He was funny.
I'm not James.
Yeah. So I want to talk about also as we record this. I was going to say the final one, but it's not the final one. The most recent Mission Impossible is out in theaters. In anticipation of going to see that the day we're recording this.
Isn't it called The Final Reckoning? It's the final one, right?
It's called The Final Reckoning. They've almost all been sort of posited as the final one.
It's the LCD sound system of action films.
As long as Tom wants to keep making them, they're gonna keep doing it. So in anticipation of that, I rewatched all 7 previous films, which are all on Paramount Plus, over the last week and a half or so, and it's such an interesting look at the way things change, because the first one's in '97 when we were in college,
I remember
Jeez.
right?
that's the only one I've seen of all these 7.
And it's what's his name? Why am I blanking? The director, Scarface, Brian De Palma.
I was like, we need more clue. We're like, we didn't know.
Brian De Palma's directing it. It basically might as well be in a different universe than the other movies. It's a straight up spy film. Ethan Hunt doesn't even fire a gun in that one. But it's funny because you watch that one. I remember going to see it in the theaters and really loving it. And then in between the first and the second one, the Bourne Identity comes out, and the Bourne Identity changes everything. It changes the Bond films. It changes these films.
Yeah.
In the second one, Ethan's suddenly a kung fu master, double gun wielding, doing acrobatics. Like the whole idea of the world changes because of those Bourne films.
Swingers own Doug Liman changing the world.
He did, and it's interesting to watch the sort of the arc of it. The second one's the most like early 2000s movie I've ever seen. It's just like it's that magical year between Y2K and 9/11. It's like everything has its own aesthetic. It's so over the top. There's a lot of like driving guitar in the score.
Is that when
That's
the
the
first
John
Fast
Woo.
and the Furious came out?
I don't know if it was 2000. It was around
era.
time.
It was 2001. Fast and Furious came out 2001.
So
I just heard that on.
it would exist in that.
Yes, and these two series are very similar, I think, in that they start off in almost a very specific, small way about a small
Family
thing, and then it becomes this crazy, over-the-top superhero story, and they both sort of peak around the sixth one. It's a great series. There's tons of great actors in it. Tom Cruise is he's great in it, and it was a weird way to watch him go from 30 to 61 in the course of a week, like just to track his changes.
Aging, yeah.
That's actually what it felt like.
Yeah, but 6 is an incredible film. And Ron, if you've never seen these, 4, 5, and 6 are kind of like Star Trek 2 through 6. Like they tell one story.
Are those the J.J. Abrams ones? Or
No, he only directed 3, and then he produced the next couple.
Okay.
But 6 you
One
can
of
watch.
those is like that's one with Henry Cavill, right?
Henry Cavill's 6.
Right. Okay, I've seen that one.
That's the best one. It's the best one. It's incredible.
Yeah.
4, 5, and 6 are all great, but 6 is the best. 7 is. I rewatched it last night. I actually liked it more than I remembered liking it originally.
Dead Reckoning Reckoning Part 1.
They took out the Part 1.
I know, yeah, but still.
Although it's still in the movie.
Yeah.
When you watch it at the end, it said the end Part 1. I was like, I thought you guys took this out.
Yeah.
But
then there's Final Reckoning, which comes after Part 1.
Oh god.
Well,
yeah, I've just no interest in any of these. So.
They're very good. They're great
action movies.
Yeah, they're great action movies.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed I enjoyed the rewatch. It was really fun.
Yeah, you were asking me what it is I was watching, and I was like, what is it? Oh, I've only been watching the playoff for the last month plus. It takes up a lot of time. I've learned to start like pausing it a little in the beginning, and then we do a bunch of other stuff, and then we can skip the endless commercials that come on after it. But I have to stay off of all media so that I don't get games spoiled.
Do you fast forward through the timeouts and stuff too?
Sometimes, especially as you get near the end. The national broadcasters suck. Like they're talking to a dumbed down audience, and I don't need to hear it. Like,
I'm glad to hear that's common across all sports because that's me and Connor's lament with baseball. It's
well,
like
I mean, I assume like
it's a national game. Like, god damn it,
right? Like because you're getting the vision for everybody. Where if you're used to watching the local broadcasters, like they know the team, they know they're not going to keep telling the same stories, but the national broadcasters are not great at it. Anyway, so yeah, sometimes, especially by the end of the game, when you've kind of heard all their storylines that they've decided to pick up. Anyway, what has been great is that very few things happened that were expected. It was a really cool year. Like in the second round, all of the favorites lost at the beginning, and no one won at home for like a half of the week. Yeah, it was crazy. The Celtics, who we follow, were eliminated by the Knicks in the second round, which was extremely unexpected.
Did you see when New York went crazy and all that, all the viral footage of everyone partying outside of Madison Square Garden when
Yeah,
the
like,
won?
and they blocked
But
up
did you
7th
see?
Avenue.
Did you see the kids that climbed on the street lamp or whatever?
I don't think I
There
remember
was
that.
some kids went viral because they climbed on the street signs at 7th Avenue by and they taking video from whatever. Apparently they were seniors from my high school, like current like 17-year-old kids from my high school. So it's kind of funny. So anyway,
Not surprising.
You can have a part of that glory.
didn't ask for it.
Don't want
You
it.
know, like the Cavs had the best record in the league all year, and they were knocked out quickly and unceremoniously by the Pacers. You know, the Knicks are this weird team. They're the first good Knicks team in 25 years, but they only play, I think, you know, about 7 players maximum. Like they all play enormous minutes, and you're like, how are they not dead? But they did, and like everything unexpected happened has been super exciting. Jason Tatum, you know, this is the star Celtic player, went down with 3 minutes to go against the Knicks. They were going to lose that game anyway after they were already sort of way down. So that was a huge bummer.
Ruptured his Achilles.
Ruptured his Achilles, and everybody kind of knew it right away. And like he's popular because he's really good, but he's kind of not beloved because he's kind of a good, boring dude. But everybody, you know, like all the league is like, he's a good guy. They like, so it was really sad. He was like crying when they took him off the court. So there's been a lot of drama. There's been a lot of fighting. It's been really rough. And normally the refs are right on the whistles, but this year, like they've just let people go at each other a ton. It's been really fun. I don't know what's going to happen. I have switched my allegiance to the Pacers at this point. And at the time of this recording, they beat the Knicks in an amazing overtime win where they were down 17 at the end with like 5 minutes to go.
Well, they were down 9 with 45 seconds or something like that.
Yeah, it was a replay of Reggie versus the Knicks in whenever that was, 25 years ago.
When you said that.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because like I'm familiar with that game, and on the sidelines of the same game, you know, Reggie's calling the current game. Spike Lee's there. John Starks is in the audience. Patrick Ewing's in the audience. You know, like it's right there. I read a story about that where either the GM or the owner of the team, this is the old one, like he left because there's a famous comeback, and like Reggie Miller scored like 9 points in the last 30 seconds or something like that to win the game. They didn't go on to the finals. They got beat by the Bulls, but the owner like went out and he was like, fuck this. And he went out and smoked a cigarette in the hallway, and somebody came and got him. He's like, we won. And he was like, what? So, but it's been super fun. We got another chunk of time to go. I was in London for a week, and I thought I'd be able to watch it, you know, with my subscriptions in the iPad, but no, regionally I wasn't allowed to watch anything. But no, it's been great, and it really, really super fun. Like the one other thing I just wanted to mention is that on that flight to London, I had downloaded a bunch of stuff trying to figure out something to watch, and I watched Tombstone for the first time in a while. And I know that you guys, we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot about Goodfellas. I don't know if you remember that. We spent some time discussing Goodfellas.
Vaguely, yeah.
Well, my Goodfellas story is that like whenever it came onto HBO, we had like a free preview weekend, and like late on a Sunday night it came on, and I was like, I wonder what this is, and I got completely hooked into watching it. Well, Tombstone is the other bookend to that. I went to a movie that, so it's 91, 90? I'm trying to remember it, but like I was 13, 14. I knew not a thing about Westerns, and I sort of just followed, and I think it was my stepfather, to the movie, and we went and saw Tombstone, and it was the same. I was like
93,
that late. Okay. Well, so 16, even so. And I loved it, and I didn't really know why. And then every time I watched it subsequently, you know, I'm like, this is just the most perfect film. And I was thinking about it, Connor, you and I talk a lot about how we like Westerns, and I have to be completely honest. I really like most of my Western knowledge comes from the last, 25, 30 years. There's the originals, and I've watched a bunch of them over the years, but like, if I have to be honest, like Tombstone and Unforgiven, those are my favorite movies, but those are both sort of postmodern Westerns. Anyway, there's like a lot of lore about this, but the director was kicked off, and Kurt Russell secretly. It doesn't matter though. It's perfect. It is. I Will Fight Anyone is Val Kilmer's finest performance. Every moment he has on screen is amazing. The cast is so chock full of interesting people, and the movie exists on this old and new period. Like, it's narrated by Robert Mitchum, at the beginning, and Charlton Heston shows up, and like, and then a lot of the character actors are, people who had been in Westerns forever, and they're sort of filling out the ranks. But then there's also like Billy Bob Thornton shows up out of nowhere, but just every line is like, everything Kurt Russell says is a great movie line. It's just one thing after another. It's worth going back to if you haven't in a while. It's absolutely
Classic.
one of my favorites.
It's a classic.
This guy went on to write the Mummy franchise.
He did.
Kevin,
But I don't believe
he wrote Glory right before this.
Yeah, he did. Like, and then kind of that was it.
He probably didn't need to after the Mummy franchise.
That's probably true. And of course, George B. Cosmatos, who directed Cobra with Sly Stallone
with the matchstick in his mouth.
I don't know what else he did.
Yep.
I saw an interview with Michael Biehn recently, and he said that.
Oh God, I didn't even mention Michael Biehn.
But he said that the urban legend was not true. That George directed the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows? No one was.
The legend makes it.
We weren't
fun,
there.
though.
We weren't there.
The thing is, like, I don't even care. Michael Biehn, I didn't even mention him. I walked away from like, who was that guy? And then you realize that everything he's in, he's great.
Stallone went back and insisted that his name be added as a writer on the Cobra novelization.
Did he write the screenplay?
No, but he created the character, and so he wanted a co-writing credit on the novel. So because he embodied the character. Yeah, he's crazy.
Oddly enough,
Stallone co-wrote the new Statham movie that just came out.
Yeah, a Working Man.
Yeah, like it's bonkers.
And his show is incredibly popular.
Yeah, and
Tulsa King.
Tulsa King. Yeah, wild. What a world. So
Oscar-winning writer and director.
Connor, I know you've sworn off any of the Star Wars Disney Plus shows, but I don't know if Andor is included in that ban or not.
Yep.
But I really implore you to reconsider it because I'm
not interested.
Fucking good.
I'm not interested. Everything everyone says about it turns me off even more.
All of the hype on this is deserved. The second season hit. And I will say I went into it really, really grumpy and angry because they, the original plan by Tony Gilroy for Andor was to be 5 seasons, which would have cost like $1 billion. But so they condensed the remaining 4 seasons into 1 season. And basically what they did was they did a weekly drop of 3 episodes, and they were like chapters, and each 3 episodes summed up a year. And so, like, you watch those 3 episodes, and then there was a year jump, and then the next 3 episodes.
I've watched the first one.
All right, I'm not gonna spoil any details. Yeah, but basically, they lead up to Rogue One, and it starts off really slow. And I was grumpy about the 3 episode weekly drops, which just because that's in a distribution kind of thing. And the first 6 episodes were a little more slowly paced, but then it picks up the pace and ratchets up, and you just see the genius of Tony Gilroy of what he did in terms of writing and plotting this and telling the story and leading up to Rogue One, and just filling in some of the blanks and laying the groundwork towards Rogue One, which then lays the groundwork to A New Hope in a very respectful and believable way in a Star Wars world that is non-Jedi Force related, where it's, politics and subterfuge and rebellion and that sort of thing, and revolutionaries. And it delivers. So I'm of the camp where I strongly recommend it. So
I was skeptical, and I watched the first season, and it definitely won me over.
Yep.
I would say that the 2 touchstones for me in the first season are Empire bureaucracy.
Yep.
There's Empire bureaucracy, which we've asked for years.
Which you're getting spades in this.
Totally get.
Right.
Like the Empire, like, office worker data entry guy who's just had enough of his shit.
Yep. And he gets some real great moments in the second season. So, yeah.
And then I thought everything that happened in the prison in the first season was wonderful. Yep. It was really the I want to say slice of life, but sort of the living in that world, in that context. I thought it was really, really well done and interesting.
and
like a Zahn book, really, because
so
they do things out in the real world.
This second season builds on that. It does not repeat any of it, and it
Right.
goes in different directions, and you get different angles to imperial bureaucracy, and you get different angles to slice of life stuff. And it does not repeat itself, and it also continues possibly the best aspect of it all, which is Skarsgård's hairpiece, which is just miraculous. It's just wonder. He's got this like flowing toupee that he wears in his little disguise, which is fantastic. And the woman that works with Skarsgård in the intelligence kind of side of things, she steals the show. So many great performances. You get Krennic back, who that guy is fantastic.
Diego Luna might be the finest actor to be in Star Wars.
He's very, very good. Very, very good. So so strongly recommend it. It's just so good. So, and then lastly, and this is a direct, this will directly tie into our main topic for the show. I've had several long distance drives, which, as I'm off to do, love to dive into a longer play podcast. And I think I talked about it on a couple Mediasplodes a few months ago, but the podcast Blank Check with Griffin and David is, 2-hour plus episode deep dives into movies. And been enjoying it. They just did National Lampoon European Vacation, which was a ton of fun to listen to the story of that movie, and very amusing. But earlier this year, actually in the winter, they did kind of a mini series where they basically focused on Spielberg. And the whole premise of the podcast is they look at the work of a director who's been given a quote unquote blank check after wild success. So the idea is, a director has had a hit movie and get handed a blank check to make whatever movies they want, and then they look at the movies they make after that to see whether they worked or didn't work. Right. And so for this miniseries, they focused on Spielberg and basically looked at his career from, the beginning of his career through Jaws up until I think this one they stopped at Saving Private Ryan. Right. So it's that kind of period of time.
Did he get a blank check from Jaws forward, do we think?
That's the assumption.
Yeah.
Duel didn't really write the check for him.
No, sir. I just was like, that's early.
Yeah. But to be in terms of like the completeness of the work, they went back, they started at Duel, they talked about that. Like it's more, more of a retrospective kind of approach. They kind of broke their own format, but that's
Duel,
fine.
The unofficial Marvel movie.
Yeah. So in listening to that, I didn't listen to all of them. I picked and choose the movies that I either found the guests interesting or the movies I like. Obviously I listened to the Last Crusade episode. I listened to E.T. I listened to, they had Lin-Manuel Miranda on as a guest to talk about Hook, which was interesting. And, so listen to those shows. But as I was listening to these episodes, I was thinking about Spielberg, and then they touched on the fact, which I didn't even realize, I think they had, I forget his name. One of the co-hosts from the Big Picture podcast, Sean Fennessy. They had Sean Fennessy, the co-host of the Big Picture podcast from the Ringer podcast. And they were talking about how on the Big Picture, they were talking about Spielberg's work in the 2000s. And as I'm driving, and I was like, oh, and then I pulled up IMDb while I was driving. I know I shouldn't have. And I was like, holy shit, he's done like almost like 20 movies.
16.
He's done has an entire career outside of the movies that you think of. Like when you think of Spielberg, you think of Jaws, you think of Indy, you think of Jurassic Park, you think of like the Private Ryan, Schindler's List, the heavy hitters. But like he's had an entire career after all of that. And I just found that
move into the topic then.
And so I found that fascinating, and so inspired by Blank Check with Griffin and David, I challenged Josh and Connor here with the question of, let's take a look at Steven Spielberg's work from post Saving Private Ryan. So the movie that he made after Saving Private Ryan was in 2001, AI, Artificial Intelligence, up to his most recent movie, The Fabelmans, which came out in 2022, and look at that body of work, those 16 films, and, discuss which ones we've seen, which ones we haven't seen, and ultimately narrow down our personal top 5. So if you can pick 5 from this collection, we'll go, and I'm sure Connor will list us all the movies that he did in order. But we'll pick our top 5, and then we'll also pick our dud, our bomb from his list of these movies. But I just find it conceptually amazing that the man, and we've talked about it in the past, and Josh already touched on it a little in the podcast. Spielberg is not my favorite director. I respect the work. I like Indiana Jones, but not because I like Indiana Jones despite Spielberg. I love Jaws and respect
We're
it.
not Connor.
I'm sorry.
Don't.
But
it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to eat time.
I respect what he's done as a director, but I also find him to be a little bit of a blowhard and a little bit of a manipulator.
Okay,
not in the best way, but I respect the work, and I do, and I do appreciate, and I do have some of these movies are some of my favorite movies. But
so
I hate this band. Love this album.
I know. I enjoy this burger despite the chef. So
yes, exactly. Separate the art from the artist. That can happen. It totally can happen.
If you're not watching at home, the films from 2000 to the present, as we said, there were 16 of them. In order are in 2001, AI, artificial intelligence, which should be noted, he took over from Kubrick. So like he didn't develop this film.
No, he wrote the screenplay.
He took it over. He took the project over.
I mean, but Kubrick didn't develop it that far. It's still a Spielberg movie.
Yes, but I think there's an asterisk on it. It's not his movie entirely.
No, you overestimate how much Kubrick actually did with it.
Were you there?
I did. I just rewatched AI, by the way, and I did a deep dive on it. Kubrick did not develop it as much as you think he did.
Did you watch the DVD extras?
No, I didn't. But
okay.
So there you go.
2002 Minority Report. 2002 also Catch Me If You Can. 2004 The Terminal. 2005 War of the Worlds. 2005 also Munich. 2008 Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. 2011 The Adventures of Tintin. 2011 also War Horse. 2012 Lincoln. 2015 Bridge of Spies. 2016 The BFG. 2017 The Post. 2018 Ready Player One. 2021 West Side Story. And 2022 The Fabelmans.
All right.
Pretty impressive run for a second half of a career.
It is really interesting, and if you look at the themes that come out of it, right, in that you see a combination of science fiction, right? You see a combination of historical drama.
Mm-hmm.
You also see collaborations. You see multiple collaborations with Tom Cruise. You see multiple collaborations with Tom Hanks. Jimmy Stewart.
Same thing. That's totally correct.
That was, by the way, I just got off the red eye. So like my brain and in my head, there's some neural mapping of our generation. Jimmy Stewart as Tom Hanks.
Nope. I don't think I've heard it, but I was like, no, he's got that right.
But so you, collaboration with Tom Hanks. Right. And then you've got this like,
I want to be big,
at least from what I see, this like whimsical, like that the Spielberg whimsy aspect in some of his films as well, with Tintin, BFG, a little bit of the West Side Story, and of course like the Spielberg famously avoiding therapy and finding solace of his own demons with his own films with the Fabelmans as he resolves his own family and parental trauma. With
if
his
we could all do it that way, we would.
Sure, yeah. So it's an interesting batch of films, that's for sure.
How many of these have you seen out of the 16?
I gotta count.
Josh, do you know?
I can count which ones I haven't seen, and then go from there.
I've seen 15 out of 16. I have not seen the BFG.
I've seen 12 out of 16.
Which ones
I've not seen Minority Report. I've not seen Munich. I've not seen War Horse, and I've not seen the BFG.
I have seen all except for West Side Story, and wait, there was one other one I hadn't seen. Maybe
Tintin?
not. No, I've seen Tintin. I've seen them all except West Side Story.
Wow.
So Josh,
I saw most of them in the theater.
Yeah,
Connor, which one you've seen them all, or
I haven't seen the BFG. Everything else I've seen in West Side Story. I saw not in theater because it was COVID time. Everything else I saw in the theater.
The BFG, by the way, isn't going to be on any of my lists, but it's good.
BFG is like as far as I could tell in my research, like universally panned and considered to be horrible.
So you're wrong, Josh.
I read the book with my kid.
I'm curious why you say it's good. I mean, like,
I because I read the book with my kid like several times,
yeah,
and then we went and watched it, and we had fun. Like I've sat through bad movies.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's. I mean, also you gotta. I don't know if this is, but it's a Roald Dahl book. He is not held in the highest regard at this point from a social point of view, but his books are, fun and well written and interesting if you take out all of the very blatantly racist
I don't
shit.
think that would have been a factor in 2016's reaction, though.
I don't know.
Yeah. Connor, did you like the BFG or you didn't see that one?
I didn't. That's the only one I haven't seen.
Yeah, sorry. I saw West Side Story in the theater. You didn't see it in the theater?
No, I wasn't going to the movies in 2021, and those.
I saw that. That was one of the ones I want to see this in the theater because I want to have that. I wanted to have as much of the apples to apples experience to the original West Side Story as possible, right? I wanted to have like the big.
You saw that in the theater originally?
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I didn't see Ready Player One in the theater. That was just those two.
I did.
I saw that in the theater, unfortunately. Yeah, that was so.
All right, so how are we doing this?
Somebody want to go first and go through their 5, or do we want to go round robin, or how do we want to?
Am I ranking? I'm ranked, but I'm not 100% sold. Do I have?
I'm not. I don't have a ranking. I just have
All right,
5.
so
I've got a ranking. I've got a solid.
I'll go, and I'm gonna go ostensibly.
Let me rank mine while you guys talk.
I'm gonna go ostensibly worst to best, and this it was a little tricky. Like I've got okay. So at 5, I have The Adventures of Tintin. I only saw it the one time, but I remember being really surprised. I was like, this was really excellent. It had all of those adventure things that you kind of loved about Indiana Jones, but in the context of Tintin, I just thought as an animated movie, it felt like that. And I had a great time watching it. And part of it was just the big surprise of it. Yeah. I would say,
and the Polar Express style animation didn't bother you, or like it worked?
Remember it.
Was it? Yeah. I thought it was just regular animation. I didn't think it was.
It was like that. It was that weird Zemeckis Polar Express kind of like rounded nose people kind of thing.
I thought it was just trying to do the style of the book.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
No, it was regular animation.
No.
Well, either way, no, that wasn't a thing. It was really one of those like didn't really expect much.
Oh, you're right. I'm looking at stills from it. Yeah. Look weird.
I would have tied that with Bridge of Spies. I put it just over it because it was more interesting in the.
So you have Bridge of Spies at 4.
No, I would have had it's 6. I'm saying like that was right neck and neck with it.
Oh,
I almost had that there. Number 2 is The Post.
Number 2 or number 4?
What's 4?
5 was Tintin. 4 is The Post. I'm reading them this way, so it was 2 in my eyes. The Post is my favorite kind of movie.
Yeah.
Not historical. They're telling a true thing that happened. That has to do. I love newspaper investigation movies.
It's a great genre.
Spotlight is maybe in my top 5 movies of all time. So this was right up there. It has to do with Watergate happened and it affected. We weren't alive for it, but I feel like it affected every aspect of our lives.
It's changed everything.
Yeah,
it changed everyone's faith in the government, and
so the more to understand about it. And
it's a great companion piece to.
Great companion, amazing cast.
Yep.
Matthew Rhys. So it's all good. Let's see. So next up, 3, which works either direction, is Catch Me If You Can. Just a really fun, rollicking adventure movie. And adventure in a different way. I mean, it's not exact, but it's I can't remember his name. Yeah, kind of.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Not like going through the woods, but sort of again, I didn't expect it, but I remember walking out of the theater just being like, God, I really enjoyed that. And then having watched it subsequent times, and it lost none of that luster. It's just a really fun adult movie, for grown-ups, and it was fun, but but mature, I guess. I don't know. Next up is Lincoln.
I knew you were going to be high on Lincoln.
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, I have no idea if this is a good film. But I know that it came out about the same time as the Avengers, and everyone was very excited about the Avengers. And I was like, "You heard about this Lincoln?"
I just my memory of Lincoln is blankets.
It was cold.
It was cold back then.
I know. Yeah, just a lot of blankets.
He was very thin. Actually, he was extremely muscular. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis. doesn't do stuff everyone, all that often, but what he
Yes.
did, I thought was amazing. He clearly did his research. He understood. That movie was 2011.
12.
12. It is like, if you watch it now, it's like, oh, all of these people became famous either as character actors or leads. I mean, the cast, when you watch it, it's absurd. Like Lee Pace, Michael Stuhlbarg, Walton Goggins. It goes on and on and on and on and on. I wish it was longer. It just focuses on a very small amount of time as they're trying to get the amendment passed to free slavery. But there's oddly very few prestige movies about, what I would argue is our greatest president in the most important time. I loved it. It's great. And then finally, Munich. As you can see,
your number one is Munich.
Yeah, I love Munich.
Wow.
It is, again, it's a historical account. Really great acting. Daniel Craig is, I love Daniel Craig. He's one of my favorite screen presences. Again, it's like all these things that, like, this happened in the early 70s, 72, I think, about the same time as Watergate, more or less. This huge event, this thing that happened before our lives, and then we grew up in the 80s, and like it was like hijacking. That was the thing that people were very afraid of at the time, and it turned out that came true. But
what was happening then? That's what they were afraid of.
Yeah. But the intrigue of what was going on and what the defense forces were going and all the spies. I love that movie. Big fan. And I'll save bad for last.
Yeah, let's say we'll do bad for
last. It wasn't on that list.
Yeah. It wasn't on the list?
It wasn't on my best of list, so it's still a surprise.
Okay. Well, yeah. I think anyway.
That's the joke.
All right.
That's twice I've had to explain that today, so I must be off.
All right. Connor, do you want me to go or you want to go? Or
why don't you go?
All right. So from bottom up, my number 5, I give it to West Side Story. Which I was very skeptical of at the time, and I was annoyed at the hubris of Spielberg thinking that he could remake West Side Story, one of my favorite musicals and favorite musicals. And then I did see it, and while it's not perfect and it is flawed in some places, there's also some aspects of it that are just like phenomenal, right? And like the Be Cool song sequence is just amazing, and picking out and the young cast the casting that he went through with it. One of my favorite young actors, Mike Feist, is in it. Rachel Ziegler, who's gone on to do stuff as Spotted Her as Maria. It was a big swing that as we've gotten further from it, I think about it. I walked out of it frustrated, but then as the years have gone away, I think about it more. I think about it more often, and I think about it more fondly. And my approach, and I kind of give my context to this ranking, is for me, it's like, what movies have stuck with me? What movies would I either have rewatched or referenced or recommended versus what movies have I just moved on from? You know what I mean? Where like, while, you guys have seen them all, and I there, 5 of them I didn't see, like I still haven't seen Munich, and I like the topic. I just have never gotten around to watching it. I saw Lincoln in the theater, and yes, it was very good. I like Daniel Day-Lewis. I have not thought about that movie other than the blankets just now since seeing it, right? It didn't really stick with me as much. I remember it being very dark.
John Hawkes. Tim Blake Nelson. It's an endless cast.
I know. Or like for example, I saw War of the Worlds, right? It's a night at the movies.
Boulay.
Not at the movies, but like I can't tell you anything more about War of the Worlds. Admittedly, it was 20 years ago, but didn't really stick with me, right? But here, coming nearly 5 years later, West Side Story still does stick with me. I have been meaning to rewatch it. I've been meaning to get my wife to watch it. Yeah, I just think positively of it. There might be a recency bias there, but I'm going to give it my number 5 slot as we have this conversation now. So number 4, I give to The Post. And as we go into my top 4, I will admit that I start to tread less into top 4 Spielberg movies versus I really like Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
And like the collaboration, Spielberg made a very good decision by collaborating with Tom Hanks. in terms of one of my favorite actors, but B, a very versatile actor and a very talented actor, obviously. But yeah, for Josh, similar to all the reasons that you said, great topic, great moment in time. Love a historical drama, love a newspaper drama, and told it in a very, 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 very engaging way. Which leads right into my number three, which is Bridge of Spies. Similarly, again, Tom Hanks.
I feel like I know where this is going.
The Bridge of Spies being a story that I vaguely knew about, but did not know the details, and was really kind of enthralled by the intrigue of it all, right? And that time period, and just the way intelligence moved, and the way the machinations, and what a subtle action and the ramifications it could have. And I thought really balanced that very, very well. So Bridge of Spies was great. Number two, Catch Me If You Can, also Tom Hanks, fantastic. And that movie had such a velocity, not to mention such a great design and such a great aesthetic to it, but it just really the thrill of the chase, and the Tom Hanks chasing down Leonardo DiCaprio, and the whole aspect of it just was fantastic. And that was something that I remember when it came out being a real surprise, being a real like, whoa, Tom Hanks, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Spielberg, why is this so good? And now looking back on it, of course it's going to be good, right? You talk about three fantastic names in filmmaking, just wonderful. But my number one
in a bucket of cream.
Yeah, my number one, which, as you kind of predict, the one that I've watched more than any of them, and still quote and still reference, is The Terminal. To the point where I forgot Spielberg directed this. I thought this was a Zemeckis film, to be honest with you. But The Terminal is so delightful. Great heartwarming story. Wonderful Stanley Tucci as a villain. Takes place in JFK, takes place at my home airport, right?
Bureaucratic villain.
And I no joke, whenever it's on, if I'm in a hotel room, I turn on the TV, I see it's on, I watch it. Me and my sister send each other quotes and take pictures of the TV when it's on, still to this day. I mean, now 2004, 21 years later, we will make references, we'll say lines to the movie and know exactly what it means. And for whatever reason, that story really resonated with us, and told, and it's what I like about it, when you think about Spielberg, when I think about him, at least from his filmmaking standpoint, from his, kind of his catalog, is there's a grandiosity to it, right? You think of these big set pieces, and you think of these big, the whether it's the special effects, or the attention to detail, the meticulousness of it, or what they did, and the overblown approach, and whatever it might be, whatever movie, there's always some bizarre, crazy thing that he did in order to do that film, whether it's the building the shark for Jaws, or the long opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, right?
Recreating
or the recreating dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, all that sort of stuff. But when you think about The Terminal, it is a small movie. It literally just takes place in the airport, right? And like there's not room for bells and whistles and special effects and magic. It was all about relationships, and was all about personality and connections, oddly in an airport where you make connections and things. And so I give him credit in that it flexed a different kind of storytelling muscle that he was not as well known for, and it has a soft spot in my heart. So Terminal gets my number one. So
I would say, just before Connor gets to it, is that is a perfectly valid description of Spielberg's talent and his over. But I don't think of it like that at all, because I think that he makes these like really entertaining, incredibly entertaining, and suspenseful movies of any kind. Like that is my sort of, when I think of him as like, because he made Schindler's List entertaining, and it shouldn't have been. It's just that it's interesting. That's the way that I don't think of it as spectacle, although that is part of his whole thing.
Well, he is. I mean, he's known as our best
I know.
visual storyteller, and for a reason. But also, I mean, I would disagree with Ron that he none of those things work unless the characters are engaging. And
Sure, agreed.
I would say
Yeah.
almost every film on here is all full of great characters with great.
He has
great-
some.
I'm not saying that the special effects and the big things take away from the characters. You're right. The story is always there, and the story has to be there. And he's someone who always, the story needs to have the story to back up the film. But it seems as if with every movie, not every movie, but the majority of the movies, there's always been that big element.
Sure, because he's a visual master. He is.
Yeah.
He doesn't storyboard. He doesn't need to. Most of my movies have all been picked, so I'm not going to go deep into each one. I'll just say that overall, these are 5 great movies. I could pick 5 other great movies. Like there's at least 10 great movies on this list of 16. It's an impressive thing that we don't think about. I think, Ron, you were right when you mentioned this as a topic. It was like, I don't think about his quote unquote second half, but it's wide ranging, and there's all kinds of interesting things that happen here.
He doesn't repeat. I mean, with the exception of the historical dramas, he doesn't really repeat himself that much. Like it's not like
times too.
It's not like and they're different times and they're different topics and they're very different. They're all very different movies, but like he doesn't fall into the well of making the same kind of movie over and over again, which I give him a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
For. Yeah. So
4 of my 5 have Tom Hanks in them.
Yeah.
And I also realized that of these 5, these are probably the 5 that I've watched the most also.
Yep.
Which makes sense. I mean, I've seen all these movies. I like them all. Well, except for the one we're going to talk about later, but I think I was thinking about as you guys were talking that these are definitely the 5 I've watched the most out of all these. So number 5 is The Terminal. It's almost like a companion piece to a Zemeckis film, Castaway, in that it's very much about Tom Hanks. Now there's other people in it, but it's like he's in every scene of the movie basically, and you don't buy it unless he can sell this guy who has a lot, whose layers unfold like an onion throughout the film, who's much more interesting by the end. And also, I think this is related to what we were talking about just a second ago. Spielberg doesn't get credit, I think, for getting great performances out of actors, because every one of these movies we're talking about features incredible performances.
Yeah.
He's known as a visual director, but he's an incredible acting director.
Yeah.
You got to be, because every one of these movies is great. 4 is Catch Me If You Can. For all the reasons you guys said, it's almost, a lot of these movies are movies that are never going to get made again, and I can't imagine a Catch Me If You Can ever getting made again. High budget, low stakes crime drama featuring 3 incredible actors, 2 of our biggest stars of the world at the time.
Too.
Yeah,
but like that period of time is really
quite a bit about the Flash in it out of nowhere. Like, but it's a visual feast. Like, Ron, I can't imagine your receptors overblowing watching this movie. All the mid-century modern furniture.
Oh my god, yeah, no, the poster alone. I mean, like, oh, like Saul Bass, like, oh my god, yeah,
the hats,
the hats,
the little fedoras, the skinny ties, whatever accent Tom Hanks was doing. Was it Boston accent? It doesn't matter. If it's on TV, it's impossible I won't sit down and watch whatever point it's on. All these movies are like that. 3 is The Post. This is going to be very familiar to everyone in my list. I own it on Blu-ray. I watch it a lot.
We have very similar tastes.
Yeah. I just watched good portion of
I feel like no one mentions The Post though. Like, I feel like
it's a great movie.
It's good.
I just watched a good portion of All the President's Men yesterday, and I made me want to go watch The Post, because it basically starts once the moment that movie ends. And you think Jason Robards does the definitive Ben Bradley, which he did. He won an Oscar for it, but Tom Hanks is great. It's full of all these movies are full of great actors, and The Post is no exception. And it's a very important story. And was this the one he did while he's doing post production on Ready Player One? I think he shot The Post and finished The Post while he was doing post production on Ready Player One. Like, he just knocked out The Post while he was not busy doing that. That's how good he is. And then 2 is Lincoln. It was everything I hoped it would be and more. It's wonderful. I've seen it so many times. Yeah. It's features one of the great performances in modern film, and you're right, Josh. You just wish he would have done, like, I'm gonna do the Lincoln trilogy. you know, because
Yeah,
like,
That'd be
I
cool.
want to
Yeah.
spend more time with them.
but it shouldn't be exciting, right? Like we all know the answer. They're going to pass the 13th Amendment, but
Mhm.
it's a gripping final scene. That's
Well, and
filmmaking.
that is that final scene. When I said like entertainment and suspense, the way that you took basically a policy,
A parliamentary vote was
and made it extremely suspenseful and like found a way. Let's have these
That's
guys run
filmmaking.
back and forth, and
Yeah.
no, totally. Yep.
Number one is a movie I've watched twice in the last month, Bridge of Spies, co-written by the Coen brothers.
Yep.
That movie is perfect. I think
It's very good.
There's nothing wrong with it. There's no fat on it. It's suspenseful. It's funny. It's heartwarming. It breaks your heart. It covers the gamut. Features incredible performances. The Oscar-winning performance from Mark Rylance and Rylance,
Who was also the BFG.
Yes.
Yep.
But
and the guy in Ready Player One, the guy who did the thing.
You just remembered more about that than I did.
Oh, yeah.
I turned it on. Like I was sitting down for lunch one day at work, and I turned it on, and it just started. And I'll just watch it while I eat, and then I had to go get my laptop and bring it down because I wasn't going to be able to stop watching it and work while. And it was on a couple days because it's on like rotation and Stars or something, and it was on a couple days later, and I just started watching it again, and I was just as enthralled and riveted. I don't know if it's the last great Tom Hanks performance. No, that's the Post, but it's another. People don't talk about this movie in terms of Tom Hanks movies or Spielberg movies being amongst the best, but he's incredible in it, and it's an incredible Spielberg movie.
Yep.
So there you go. Those are my 5.
It's interesting. It's that I mean, if you look at it, if you put aside everything from Saving Private Ryan down to Jaws, like which he could stop at Saving Private Ryan and be one of the best directors of all time, be acclaimed. You put that aside and you take just the 2000s. This is a run that is.
Well, if this was a new person, flip it. If this was a guy coming on the scene whose first film was AI, and then he made these 16 films, you'd be like, "Holy shit!"
Right. Well, I mean, if his first new guy on the scene, his first movie is AI, I don't think they let him make another movie. But
David Fincher's was Alien.
Yeah, right. Resurrection. So. Yeah.
I mean, this is like a David Fincher thing. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
I have a question. Oh, before we get
plus everything he created in the 30 years before it.
Let's do the bad one before my question.
Yeah. All right. So, Josh, is it going
to be the same one?
What is your dud?
Do you think the chances are it's the same movie?
For me, like I think I just like more of these than Connor does. But for me, I would go with AI.
Wow.
Which was an extremely disappointing performance, but I also remember it as the film where I experienced the most harsh audience reaction the movie. I was in LA and like the audience en masse turned on this movie. And I've never seen it like that. It wasn't
at what point in the movie was it from Jump? Or
I haven't seen it in a very long time, but there was a point where it should have been over, and then they tacked on like an extra bit. And I don't remember that part, I don't remember if it was me. I think it was, but it could have been somebody else. And I went, "Oh, come on!" I think it was me, and everybody like laughed and were in because everyone was like, "Oh, it was just." We're going to triple overtime. It's like, I don't want to. Like, we all decided together in the movie that we hated it.
It's so interesting because I put zero stock into aggregation scores, 0. But
I just need from the experience.
No, I'm just thinking it's interesting. AI has a 7.2 on IMDb, which is the same score as Lincoln.
Yeah,
and the same score as just under Munich, just under the Terminal.
So I'm laughing. I'm laughing.
Post.
I'm laughing very much because part of my dud is AI also.
Oh wow!
Because I never saw it until 3 days ago. And what happened was that I was listening to Blank Check, the podcast, and they're talking about these Spielberg movies, and these guys are talking about AI with such reverence and how it's one of the best movies. And I was like, what the? I'm like, that Jude Law movie, the Haley Joel Osment, the weird movie that I didn't go see in 2001. And then I went on Letterboxd and I found the guys in the podcast reviews of it, and I found other people's and everyone's like, oh my, a modern classic and blah blah blah. And I'm like, what are all these? So I'm like, I've got to see this. So I had a flight to San Francisco. I downloaded it. I got it on my tablet. I sat on the plane and I watched it. And I'm watching it, and I'm just like, this is garbage. This is like, and the thing was, is that I could see the Kubrick linkages and lineage from it, but I could also see all the things about Spielberg that I cannot stand: the emotional manipulation, the mommy issues, all the things that are all the negative things about Spielberg. And it was just so, and Josh, I know exactly what you're talking about at the end, the tack on the last piece, and just like, there's so many points where this movie goes wrong. It's unbelievable.
I think an element that I didn't mention that's important is that I was and am a very big Stanley Kubrick fan. At that point, I was like that was my favorite thing. And you couldn't pick a director more un-Kubrick like. And
it's not a good mix.
Yeah.
And so you go in with this is the unfinished, the last Stanley Kubrick movie.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. And so, I don't know what my expectations were, but they were not met in any way.
Yeah.
And then I was validated by a large group of people in the entertainment.
Yeah. I cannot. And it is a movie in the 25 years since it's come out that has now been somehow reclaimed. And Connor, to the aggregated score, stuff like that, there are people who are like, it's misunderstood. It's a misunderstood.
Clones.
Yeah. And it's just like, no, F you, you're wrong. It is a bad movie. So, yeah.
I can't speak to it. I only saw it that one time in the theater in 2001. So I remember hardly anything about it whatsoever. But
oh my God.
So my vote goes to the just horrible mess that was Ready Player One.
It was so bad.
It was, and I don't know how much of it was a source material that just gets worse the more you think about it. But
yeah, I know. So disturbing.
It didn't. The adaptation was
readable crap.
Oh no, I flew through it.
Couldn't put it down. Not good.
Yeah. But it gets worse the more you think about it. But that concept should have been really fun. Like, take all of these touchstones from pop culture and put them into this movie, and it just was a mess.
It felt so forced, and it felt so
inauthentic.
Inauthentic. And I do think, and I kind of think the point you made, I think that part of it is the source material, is that Ernest Cline wrote a book that, I mean, and it almost makes sense that Spielberg made it because it was as manipulative as Spielberg's emotionally manipulative even filmmaking can be. And like, even
at the time reading it and liking it, and I don't want to spend too much time on the book, but he wrote a really fascinating puzzle featuring human simulacrums who were not anything like human beings.
Simulacrum.
Not important to the conversation. And also who didn't interact like human beings and didn't, it just didn't, that was the worst part of the book. Even when I was reading, I was like, these characters are terrible.
Yeah.
And the movie it was just a mess.
I also think that, and this could be wrong, but generationally, I don't think Spielberg was the right person to make that. None of those are his pop culture touch points.
Right.
He didn't grow up in any of that stuff. So he's doing it as an observer. And I think it may have worked better if somebody younger had done it, but I don't know.
Like Edgar Wright or like
somebody. Maybe something with a little more of a modern aesthetic.
Yeah. Like you had people telling him, oh, you got to put this stuff in that's,
right.
It's
like, so what is it people like about Transformers? Okay.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
did he produce those?
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
he probably did. Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like the in AI. And I don't know if you remember because you both haven't seen it, but there's when Jude Law and Haley Joel Osment get captured and they go to the Flesh Fair, right? There's a 2000 era new metal band playing at the Flesh Fair, and I'm like, I can't imagine Steven Spielberg's like, yes, that's the band. You know what I mean? Like, someone told him, like, yeah, this
is
something
like Korn.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh my God, just so bizarre. Anyway, and it was funny because as I was thinking worst movie, like the obvious one that jumps out is Crystal Skull, but I'm like, that's too easy. It's low hanging.
I don't even think that's
it doesn't exist. I just can't.
I would watch it right now if it was on, especially after that last Indiana Jones movie. It made Crystal Skull better in comparison.
Sort of the problem is that like the bad movies from this, I only saw the once, so right. I could, Warhorse, it's not,
Yeah.
but I didn't
I
experience
love
it like
Warhorse.
that. I knew you were going to say it.
Never saw Warhorse. No
It was
desire.
Beautiful.
And I don't remember Minority Report, but I remember not liking it.
No.
Oh, that was also
That's supposed to be pretty good. I've never seen it.
Yeah, it was terrific.
So, yeah.
So my question was, a lot of people around here, when we're at bars, talk about movies and favorite directors, and Spielberg never comes up in the conversation, but I don't see how he can't
It's too
be in my top 5.
Yeah,
current working directors. I don't see how he's not. I just don't ever think about it. Like it's always Tarantino and Nolan and Scorsese and
because
Greta Gerwig, but I just don't think of Spielberg. But he should be in that.
Doesn't have any.
He has no edge. That's the thing.
He doesn't need an edge. Doesn't matter.
No, but like he's not. But Tarantino has an edge. Marty has an edge. Like Spielberg doesn't have a. Spielberg has been what was always this, young overachiever trying to establish himself, trying to prove his worth, and then over delivered, and then overconfident, and continue to keep on over delivering kind of thing, but like in a mass media kind of, completely no, because he didn't go to film school. He didn't go through what Coppola and Lucas. No, but that's what I'm saying. They come from a different stock, right? He was so young when he was on the lot, and when he was trying to work and get his break and work in film, and then he was such a success so early. Then he immediately had, when you go and look at his career, the success of Jaws and then the success of Raiders threw him into this spot of where this kid can do no wrong. And now he's constantly trying to prove himself. And you have E.T., which is supposed to be this quiet little movie that everyone's not going to bother him with. And that becomes the highest grossing film for 20 years, right? It didn't get knocked off the highest grossing until the late 90s or whatever it was, right? And so you take the fact that he was inexperienced but had this immense amount of success, but questioning himself. I guess the difference is that he was a student of film in a different way than a Tarantino or Scorsese is and was.
I'm going to break this down to a much simpler version, and I don't know if it's the same thing you're saying. He has never tried to be cool.
Yes.
He's never tried to be cool.
Yes.
But what he does do is try to entertain, and that would indicate that the movies are boring. But if we're talking about Munich, if we're talking about Saving Private Ryan, even or Schindler's List, like, he makes difficult movies to deal with. They're not difficult to understand. It's about being clear. He's a fan of American cinema. Yeah. And that's what he wanted to do. He wants to tell great stories with his style, but he's not trying to be cool because he's not.
I mean, very early on in his career, he establishes the fact that he makes amusement park ride movies.
But he doesn't, though. We just talked about.
He does. He absolutely did. Jaws, Jurassic Park.
Can I finish a sentence?
Jaws is my favorite movie of all time.
We're talking about Munich. We're talking about Lincoln, The Post, Bridge of Spies. These aren't. He doesn't only make. My point is, he doesn't only make those movies. He makes all kinds of movies, including movies as good as anyone else who makes movies.
Right. No, I'm saying now he does.
I don't. No, not now. He's always done it.
Yeah. No, not always at all. No.
Have you seen Jaws?
Yes, I've seen Jaws. Jaws
greatest buddy adventure of all time.
The first blockbuster film. It was the first. It was the summer. It established the summer blockbuster.
It's cool.
It is cool, right? I mean, I give you credit. I absolutely give credit that. Yeah,
anything you guys are saying is irrelevant to the output. I don't care where he went to film school. He went to film school. I don't care what his philosophy is. All that matters.
No, but I'm saying in comparison to you're talking about in comparison to the other directors. That's what I'm saying.
I think the other people are trying to be cool.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. He's not, and I don't mean that as a knock on him at all. I think that like Quentin Tarantino's trying to be cool. Yeah. He is most of the time, so it works.
And part of that is because of his pedigree. Part of that is because of his pedigree, right? Yeah. Like Spielberg didn't spend 15 years working in a video store wishing he'd be a director. Mm-hmm. He was a director very early, right? And so, and he got pulled into the system and got pulled into the machine, and very quickly had to figure out how to deliver, right? And it's a different upbringing. And so Spielberg lacks an edge that Tarantino has, that Edgar Wright has, that that other directors have, right? And
like that they have to prove themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you were saying earlier that Spielberg felt it to prove himself. So I don't understand what we're talking about.
Well, he did. I don't know, and I'm on red eye brain, so I can't explain this very well right now.
I
So
think I understand where you're coming from. It's just like, okay,
and he's a nerd. He's a nerd. He's a nerd.
And I put this into
these guys are all nerds, man. They just
in different ways. In different ways.
I put it into the context of bands. Yeah. Some bands want to be cool, and so they put a lot into it to try to make them cool, and sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not. And other bands just want to be like, let's make this audience really happy and sell a lot of records, and they don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think Spielberg is like that. He just also happens to be really good at it.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yeah. Yep. That's all.
But I think all of it's still irrelevant to the output, which is he makes. There's. I wouldn't put it. I mean.
Well, the output question is very different, and the line is
the final product is the movie.
The 2000 line is the output in the 2000 is very different than pre-2000, right? The output between Jaws and Saving Private Ryan, that career versus the career from 2000 to 2022 are very. He's not necessarily making Jurassic Park in these 2000s. He might be trying to with Ready Player One, but he's not trying to with War Horse.
So next episode. Yeah, we do the early films of Spielberg.
I mean, that's too easy. Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up. So
the middle films of Spielberg.
Fun conversation.
Yes,
5 through 8.
Yep.
85 to 92.
Always. We're just going to talk about Always. Let's just do a deep dive on Always.
I'm much less familiar with much of those movies, I think.
All right, so that was the 21st century films of Steven Spielberg. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You can always check out all of our shows at iFanboy.com. We have our weekly Pick of the Week show where Josh and I, so sometimes our friends, talk about the week's comics. We have our monthly Booksplode and Talksplode shows that alternate months, where one month Josh will interview a creator, the next month we'll review a graphic novel. We have, of course, this Mediasplode. We have our special edition shows. So if you like movies, like comic movies, we'll be talking about Superman and Fantastic Four. We already reviewed Thunderbolts this year and Captain America. And of course, Ron just got back from Google. That's why he's so tired.
Yes, I was just at Google I.O. covering that for Android Faithful. Podcast comes out every Tuesday over at AndroidFaithful.com. If you're into smartphones or technology and fun stuff like that, go check it out. Good time. So.
All right, so that's it for this month's show. We'll be back next month. Until then, I'm Connor.
I'm Ron.
I'm Josh. Couldn't think of a Spielberg joke.
Now you couldn't.